This morning on BRN, 96% of S&P 500 companies have had data breaches. Joining me now is Vincentas Baubonis, the head of research for CyberNews. Vincentas, great to see you. Thanks for joining us on the program this morning.
It's great to see you too, Jeffrey. Thank you for having me.
And thank you so much for agreeing to come on and for sharing your research. Look, I'm going to be honest. I looked at the headline and it just shocked the heck out of me. 96% of S&P 500 companies had data breaches. You're the person doing the research. You and the team are doing the research. Did that shock you as well?
Yeah, it is kind of shocking. Although we had the Fortune 500, which came to similar results. So, it wasn't my first time to see those numbers, and I've been involved in quite a few researches myself over the years. So I'm very aware of cybersecurity stances within companies in USA.
Yeah, and in terms of the types of data breaches, I mean, what are we talking about? I think when a lot of Americans, a lot of us think about, and probably those around the globe, think about the big hacks. They come in and they spoof or they phish. What are the main lines of attack into some of these to create some of these data breaches?
Well, basically, with CyberNews Business Digital Index, we have worked out a 7-category kind of methodology to evaluate any company. And for data breaches, we are scanning, public web for exposed credentials, which could be reused in further breaches through credential stuffing attacks. They're called the SO. So basically, hackers just take data which was available online, either through Stealer logs or sold in dark web in some forums, and then just reuse those query of acquisition from public sources or just buying them to reuse in further attacks. And with BDI, we're basically scanning the public web. We don't really buy from cyber criminals, but there's plenty of credentials online just to find with scrapers and bots scanning the web constantly. So those 96% actually come, from public sources where we were able to find some employees' credentials online, and we can safely assume then that on some level the company and its private data was already breached. So
yeah, I mean it's certainly disconcerting when you see the number 96%. Are there certain industries that maybe are more that have been breached more than others? Like, for example, I come from the financial services industry, but maybe manufacturing or some of the other elements of the Fortune 500 that are more vulnerable than others?
Well, in this research, we actually evaluated all the companies through those 7 criteria, which we aggregate into 4 areas of concern. And we have assigned each evaluated company some kind of a rating. So it's hard to answer your question strictly, because we evaluate the company stances of security through those different grades. And in different industries, we have different percentages of acquired grades. So like for manufacturing, 52.9% of evaluated companies received an F. So it's more than half. That's definitely not great. But if we're talking about the best security practices in specifically this research, we have technology and IT as having the best grade, 12.9 of companies evaluated having received an A grade. Whichever way you choose to, evaluate whether industry is more prepared, if it has a bigger score, bigger percentage of A score or a bigger percentage of S score, it would, depend on that, I would say, the evaluation.
Yeah. Vincentas, when it comes to all these companies, I mean, these are big entities. They have millions, if not billions of dollars of revenue. They presumably spend a lot of money on security. Do they need to spend more money on security, or do they need to focus their efforts? It's kind of like whack-a-mole, the game whack-a-mole, where you hit the mole and it pops up somewhere else. But do they need to focus their efforts maybe in other places? Maybe they're just not directing their efforts appropriately, maybe.
Well, it's hard to tell because what I have seen from my years in working in this field, that a lot of companies concentrate after some incident happens. So my personal approach and my personal, guidance for such companies is to take care of your own, back garden before something bad happens. So you have to have some processes in place. You definitely have to spend some money into detection algorithms, into detection software to catch some incidents early, and of course be aware of attack surface that you expose, to hackers, where they can penetrate your defenses. So basically, for example, talking about data breaches, you have to monitor those data breaches online as well, because as we know, recent attacks are usually done through very simple things like social engineering or that same credential stuffing. If you as a company aware uh, of a data breach that happened against your employee who has like high clearance, into your systems, you can catch it early. You can change the password. You can change the credentials of that employee. You can restrict it from your network, just to be sure that those exposed credentials are not used for further attacks against your infrastructure. So what I would say in general is for companies to be in a better cybersecurity stance is just to be aware of the situation which is happening externally and internally. You don't only have to monitor your internal processes, your code development, your continuous integration, but you have to be aware of publicly available information about your company online. It would add another step into security of your company, and it would prevent such attacks, which, for example, happened against Colonial Pipeline, which was, as we know now, exposed through a cracked password, which was a pretty simple one, used on an old system, and it was reused in another system, which allowed the attackers to take over of Colonial Pipeline and then disable some states' fuel access for quite some time.
Yeah, and by the way, I live in North Carolina, here in the United States, and that certainly happened to us. We had gas lines because people couldn't get gasoline. Vincentas, I want to conclude this episode, but I want to bring you back tomorrow. So when we come back tomorrow, we'll talk more about what these companies can do and also maybe what consumers do. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you back on the program tomorrow morning.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
And don't forget to subscribe to our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse, for all the news in one place. Details, of course, at our website. And your subscription supports all this great BRN content. And we're back again tomorrow, as I said, for part 2 of our conversation with Vincentas. Until tomorrow, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving. And don't forget, roll with the changes.